In the 18th and 19th centuries, the area now known as Old Montreal, including Place d'Armes, was a bustling port and commercial centre. St. James Street was the undisputed financial hub of British North America. In 1817, George III sat on the English throne. Just 2 years before, Napoleon had met his Waterloo, and Queen Victoria was not even born. In Canada, it was the era of horse-drawn carriages, stagecoaches, and sailing ships. Railways were unknown, and there were no telegraphs. In that year of 1817, the Bank of Montreal opened its doors in rented facilities at 105 St. Paul Street, a site now marked with a historical plaque. And in 1819, the first building constructed exclusively for banking purposes was erected on the corner of St. James Street and St. Francois Xavier, site of the current 17-story tall head office building, built in 1960. The Bank of Montreal, one of the oldest buildings in Place d'Armes, originally the main commercial centre of Montreal in Canada, still stands today, older than the country itself, and yet is still a vital banking and financial centre. From the gas lamps in the bank entranceway, now converted to electric mercury light, to the main dome itself, reminders of the past abound, this truly illustrating the bank's progression from quill pen to computer. Over the years, the bank has maintained an extensive archive. Drawing on this material, a museum was established in 1963, reflecting the bridging of the years. To discuss this rich history is Freeman Clowery, Bank of Montreal archivist.
Well, also, apart from being the archivist, which in effect is the keeper of the historical documents and the memorabilia of yesteryear, which involves, of course, numismatics and tokens and photographic files and branch histories and everything of this nature. And of course we have a bank museum, and where we can share a lot of these artifacts with the general public. We have always had people in key positions in the bank who realized the value of these early artifacts. The museum, however, was established in 1963. And although it's not large, we think that it has some very good material. I certainly suggest that you visit the museum and take note of the keen things that are in there. For example, there is the land deed for the property on which the bank now stands. I think the key thing there is that it's a holograph. It was handwritten by Paul de Champmedy de Maisonneuve, the founder of Montreal. And if you look closely, you can see that it's dated 1648. It was one of the very first land grants. And as I say, he handwrote all of the deed, and it is signed by him, and it is on display there, along with many other items that obviously attract the attention of a number of people, because we have a great number of visitors to that museum, particularly school children who find that this is an interesting field trip.
I'd like to introduce myself, Yolaine Toussaint, and I'll guide you around our little museum. I'll start to explain this section here, since it represents the very beginning of the bank. This section is a faithful replica of our very first office. It was exactly like this, but 3 times bigger. And inside the cage we can see the accoutrements they used to work with at the time. Of course, we won't see any computer. This is the era of quill. We have here the very first ledger of the bank. Dates back to 1817. We used in Canada the British monetary system up until 1858. Then we converted to the decimal system. Which brings us here. We have a tridimensional diorama which represents Saint-Jacques Street as it was in 1819. This is the year the bank moved to its new head office, which is this building in the center, and it's also the first building erected in Canada for banking purpose. We have a 24-hour cycle going on, and this is to give us an idea of how was a banking day at the time on Saint-Jacques Street. On the first floor, this was the branch with its 7 employees, and just to make a funny comparison, we're 33,000 employees today. And if the lights were on in the upstairs, it's because in those days some of the employees used to live above the branch, and that was part of their benefits. We have here a very interesting collection of early mechanical saving banks. They're all from the end of the 1800s, and they're the type of saving banks the children had in those days. This one is not only the oldest one of this collection, 1860, but it's also a rare model. Actually, we're missing a little piece here, which should be a fishing cane, and the scent is like a hook, and he's pulling the hook and catches a frog. And this is Teddy and the Bear, Teddy Roosevelt. He'll shoot in the tree, and the bear pops out. Okay, the frog swallows the scent. And a magician who makes it disappear. And the last one, the mother feeds the little ones who open their beaks at the same time.
The code stones, again, are major works of art. These were ordered before our first building was complete at the corner of St. Francois Xavier and St. James. And these are signed and dated 1819. They were fashioned by Elizabeth Code in Lambeth, England. When our building was sold in that original building, 1847, to the Bank du Peuple, they remained there until about 1876, when the building was demolished and the General Post Office was erected there. The bank regained possession of these code stones, and in 1960 they were again placed in the passageway joining the 1960 head office building, the tower, with our 1847 building. So I think it's significant because there in that passageway is this link with the past between these two edifices. Although there have been a number of changes on the interior, the facade is, for all intents and purposes, as it was in 1847. And is often used as a symbol of Montreal because it's the oldest building on St. James Street, and it certainly attracts a lot of attention from place d'armes. People enjoy looking at that coat of arms and the heroic statuary that is there. But the really key factor, I think, is upon entering that building from place d'armes. If one looks up, you're exactly 90 feet under the dome, the restored dome, and that is, it's a lovely design, and it makes a great view. And then one goes up a few steps into the atrium itself. There are columns on the borders of the atrium. There are 8. These are green syenite granite that came from a very selected quarry in Vermont, because these had to be matched, because in the main banking hall itself there are 32 more of these columns, and they had to match well one with the other. I should say this, that in walking in that passageway, in that atrium, as you approach the main banking hall, one should be aware of the fact that you're walking over a city street. In 1901, when the expansion took place, the bank obtained permission from the city to bridge Fortification Lane.
After having given us a glimpse of the rich heritage of the bank, Mr. Clowery extends an open invitation.
Obviously, we would like to issue an invitation to all of your viewers, whether Montrealers or from the area or from far afield, that when they're in Montreal, we'd be glad to see them down at our museum.